Y'all, it's definitely a Monday. This is the fourth time I've tried to start recording this video. So, hello, it's Monday, May the 11th. We are in the final stretch of AMI. We have 10 days left, guys. We've got this week and next week, and then we're done. Monday, May the 25th. Shh! It's my dog. Sorry, they're very loud and rambunctious today. Monday, May the 20th. It's like having a toddler. Monday, May the 25th is Memorial Day. Grades are due on Tuesday, May the 26th. So literally, we have 10 days. We have this week and next week. I made us a schedule, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But he's scratching so loud. Our primary goal for today is going to be to reflect and write. Reflect over the entire year and all of the skills that we worked on, and write about how far you think you've come in developing English skills. So, without further ado, there are going to be 7 slides in this slideshow that you need to complete and turn in by Friday. Please use complete sentences. Like, that's the goal this week. You are practicing writing, and you are writing the basic sentence. Like, I'm not even asking you to write that many sentences because I really want you to focus on writing good, powerful sentences. So when you answer these questions, you're going to make your claim, provide a piece of evidence, sum it up. At least 3 sentences, okay? Be very specific when you talk about what you've learned, and make sure that you turn your slideshow in either before or on May the 15th. Here's our schedule for this week. We are creating a slideshow. We're going to work on the same slideshow all week long. Today, we're going to talk about genres. Tomorrow, you can write about grammar and vocabulary. Wednesday, you can write about literary devices. Thursday, you can discuss your writing skills and any life lessons that you've learned. And Friday is really sort of giving me feedback about what you enjoyed about my class. What do I need to make sure I repeat next year with my new incoming 9th graders? What do I need to trash? Next week, we will spend really writing sentences. So these will not be complicated lessons. They should be short and to the point. This is our last 5 days. So again, I'm not going to give you like the hardest assignment in the universe the last 5 days of school. So I'm not going to do that. We're just going to try to write a sentence a day. I'll try to make sure that they're kind of fun though. So it'll be worth coming and doing. All right, so let's get started with today. So today is Monday, May the 11th. We're going to be talking about genres. It's one of my favorite words to say. I feel so French when I say genre. Genre is the type of text that we have read. And if you notice, I found a picture that has a chart of different types of text. These are genres. Drama is a genre, fiction, nonfiction, poetry. Drama, if you've been watching the plays for extra credit at home, then you watched a tragedy if you watched Romeo and Juliet. Tragedies, are about characters who have this great trait that really helps them be successful, but it's also what causes their downfall, or if it's a Shakespearean tragedy, their death. So Juliet, she's very independent. She does not want her parents to tell her what to do. Romeo, very impulsive, doesn't really think through consequences. So those can be positive traits in certain situations, but they can be deadly in others, as you can see in Romeo and Juliet. A comedy, if you've watched Two Noble Kinsmen, that's the one that you can watch now currently for extra credit on YouTube from the Globe. They're also premiering Macbeth. If you're interested in doing Macbeth, you could do it as well. Macbeth is a tragedy, though. Again, he'll have a trait, ambition. and it will be what makes him an outstanding person in the beginning of the play, but it will be what brings about his downfall and eventual demise at the end. Comedy is the opposite of that. Two Noble Kinsmen, it works out in the end. It's still about a couple, but we have a happy ending. Everybody ends up with the person that they're supposed to end up with after overcoming all these obstacles to finally get together there at the end. So drama looks different on the page too. We'll have things called stage directions in there. We have the name of someone followed by dialogue. And so, there's not, it looks very different on the page than fiction, nonfiction, or poetry. Fiction, these are going to be short stories. These are novels. We have read some short stories this year. Think of Life of Pi. That's not really a short story. That's from a novel. The short story that we read at the beginning was The Seventh Man. We've read The Return for AMI. So again, fiction has that plot structure that looks like a mountain, and it has exposition where we meet the characters and we get to know things about the setting and the conflict. We have rising action. We watch our characters struggle. We have the climax up here at the top of the mountain where the character has finally changed the direction of the story. We have falling action, and then we have denouement or resolution where we wrap up all the loose ends. So that's what fiction looks like. You usually have a little dialogue sprinkled in there. Point of view is really important when we think about fiction. Nonfiction, these are going to be like Letter from Birmingham Jail, The Writing on the Wall, pieces that we read that are filled with facts. They have a main idea that is supported by other sub-ideas, and speeches might technically fall into this category. They too have, typically a main idea, and the entire body of the speech has details that support that main idea, very much like what we have in, for example, Letter from Birmingham Jail, which is the one that we most recently read. The Writing on the Wall might be another one that you remember, where they wrote poems on the walls. Poetry, we read the Colossus before we left for Christmas. During your AMI days, you have read some poems. You've read The Road Not Taken, Ithaca, Courage, Dream Deferred. And so we know poetry relies on compact language, short lines, word choice is critical. It can look very different on the page than fiction or nonfiction or drama. But again, its power is in its brevity, and it can also rhyme and have meter, rhythm and stuff like that. And then, again, speeches, the other thing right here would be that those speeches that we listen to, like I Have a Dream or the Gettysburg Address. Here is a list of everything that we've read. I might have left out a couple of things, but in Unit 1, which was right when we started school, we talked about survival. So we had the moral logic of survival, we had the seventh man, the key to disaster survival were friends and family, and then we had the little part from The Life of Pi. In Unit 2, we read the poem The New Colossus, and we talked about that piece called The Writing on the Wall, which was about the internment camps. This was right before we left for Christmas. When we returned from Christmas, we covered I Have a Dream, Letter from Birmingham Jail, and the Gettysburg Address. These were what we were covering before we left for AMI days. Since we've been home, we've done some short stories, The Ugly Duckling, The Return. We've done a piece of nonfiction here from The Hero's Adventure. This was an interview. We've done Courage and Ithaca. We also did The Road Not Taken, Dream Deferred. We watched The Wish Granter, which was a little short film, and then you've listened to some TED Talks. So this is everything we've done since we've, been working from home. So just as a reminder, So you can kind of peruse back through here and see what you think. We also did the Declaration of Independence. Forgot about that one. And it clearly needs to be on here. So you have a handy dandy list here that will go through and remind you of all the pieces that we've read this year, hopefully. All right, so reflecting back on that list, think back through the stories. Which ones did you enjoy the most? Which ones do you feel like you learned the most from? If you are just going to do these slides every day this week, you can go ahead and pause now and complete today's slide and come back tomorrow for Tuesday's work. If you are working through more than just one day, then you can just stay with me here. All right, so Tuesday, May the 12th. This is where we are going to reflect on grammar and vocabulary. If we look back up here at our list, we're going to talk about grammar and vocabulary today. So thinking about grammar, that has a lot to do with like the parts of speech. How do words work? You know, how does language work? When we were learning infinitive phrases, we had to know that infinitive phrases kind of look like a verb. To work is my favorite thing in the world. So that to work can kind of be deceptive. It can kind of look like a verb, but it's not. It can act as a noun. It can act as an adjective. So learning how words work in the sentence helps us use them correctly. It can also help us determine their meaning in some case. You know, if it's a verb, we know sometimes that's going to be an action. If it's an adjective, it might be a characteristic because it's telling us more about a noun, a person, place, or thing. So, you know, how did reviewing that language and figuring out how to use an infinitive as an adjective or how to use an infinitive as a noun, how did that work for you? Thinking about punctuation, we focused primarily on commas, semicolons, and colons. And the reason we did that is because our job in ninth grade was trying to write complex sentences or add variety to the types of sentences that we write. And how we combine sentences is to use these punctuation marks, the comma, the semicolon, or the colon. So, you know, think back over, we know that we use these for a list. We use these to introduce a quote. We use these to combine two short sentences. So think back to commas, colons, and semicolons. And then go here and tell me what you've learned about grammar and punctuation this year. So if you want to pause and take a minute or two to write that, you can. Moving on, Tuesday, May 12th. So we're going to talk about vocabulary now. We developed some strategies when we encountered a word that we did not know the meaning of. There were some things that we know to try to do to help us determine the meaning of that word. One is to use context clues. How is it used in the sentence? What part of speech does it appear to be? Breaking down words. We know that words have parts. Like EX means out. IN means in. And that was a prefix that we learned. So breaking down words. Crone was another one that we learned, which meant time. We learned this in the first semester. So breaking down words into parts, figuring out if you know what this root word is or what this prefix or what this suffix means. We learned how to use the dictionary. We learned the parts of the dictionary entry. Every time we went to Merriam-Webster, that's what we were looking for. Connections, or, you know, synonyms and substitutes. Have I heard some sort of word that sounds like this? Is there, you know, another word that maybe shares this definition? And then there's always ask the teacher, which would be me. Okay, So with that in mind, tell me, what have you learned about vocabulary strategies? Which one has helped you the most? Which one do you immediately turn to when you're reading? All right, so if you're doing these day by day, go ahead and pause me and write your second Tuesday entry. So again, Tuesday, you've got slide 8 and slide 10. You're talking about grammar and punctuation, and then vocabulary strategies. Stop me if you are doing just one day at a time. So Tuesday had 2 slides. You can go ahead and stop. If you are going on with me, then we're going to look at what I have planned for the Wednesday, May the 13th entry. And we're going to look at literary devices. This is how we connect with our audience. Some of the literary devices that we talked about: plot and plot structure, the sequence of events, allusions, references to things that we all know, personification, giving lifelike qualities to an inanimate object. The glasses danced through the air. Clearly they didn't. Metaphors and similes. These are comparisons. When our audience doesn't really know what we're talking about, we can think of something that they do know and compare it to that. Climax is part of this plot structure. Exposition also is part of plot structure. Antagonists, these are people or forces against our main character, who's known as the protagonist. We talked about repetition and parallel structure. Those two kind of go together. We see repetition is a form of parallel structure. You can have parallel structure without, repeating the same words, but you repeat the same format. Characterization, we looked at this when we looked at like Life of Pi, when we were considering why would a character do something, what motivates a character. Theme, the lesson that we learn from the story. Mood is how does the text make you, the audience, feel. Tone is how does the writer or the narrator or the author feel about the topic. Mood is how you feel as you read that story. Imagery, when we can use our senses to put someone in that situation. Irony, when things don't really turn out the way we're expected. We know there's different types of irony. And then oxymoron, these are when words don't really go together, but yet here they are side by side. So, a beautiful mess, a terrible, beauty, something like that. All right, so thinking back over all of these, and there are a bunch, which one do you feel most comfortable with? Which one were you really most interested to learn? You get excited now because you can see it in text. So write about that today. If you are only doing Wednesday's work, you can go ahead and pause me. If you are continuing on, we are moving into Thursday's work. So Thursday, May the 14th, we're going to write about the writing process. How do you approach writing now? How do you go from moving the ideas about this topic that are currently housed up here in your brain down to a piece of paper? And then how do you manipulate them on that piece of paper and get them to a point where you're comfortable publishing them, giving them to someone else to read? So again, we did this writing process all year. We would take notes and annotate stories. Once we did that, we would take all those ideas and try to use them to answer a writing prompt. So when we jotted down all our ideas, that was pre-writing. When we sort of started trying to organize them into sections, then that's drafting, and we get that first draft done. Revising means we reorganize the ideas if we need to. Did this make sense, this progression? Do I need to put this idea back up here at the top because it's not as important, because I'm trying to do this build up to the most important idea? So it's literally moving the ideas. Editing is doing what I call the makeup. It's the final touches. It's making sure that everything's spelled correctly. You do have your commas in the right spot. You've capitalized everything that needs to be capitalized. Evaluating. This is our assessing ourselves. Like, yeah, I'm pretty good with this. We usually want someone else's eyes on it to really do a true evaluation. You want someone else to read it. In class, a lot of times I would say let your shoulder partner read it, or I would read it and give you back some feedback. And then finally, publishing. This is the final draft after we have taken this feedback and made improvements. So again, thinking about the writing process. We were cut short. We would have done our bigger writing piece now at school, but we're not. So again, thinking about what we did right, what part of the writing process do you feel like you've improved upon? Do you know that there's a writing process now? Maybe that's what you learned, is that it doesn't just happen in one session. Typically, we build up ideas and we're working on organizing them for a longer period of time. All right, so Thursday, if you're just doing the slide for today, you can go ahead and pause me. If you are moving on, Friday, here we go. We're getting bigger now. We're going to think of life lessons that you've learned. I gave you an example of a few over here in the picture, but thinking about your specific school year, what have you come out of it learning, valuing? How do you feel like you're better and stronger than you were last year? What lessons will you use to build upon next year? Maybe there's some things that you did this year and you think, not going to do that next year. Okay, so and then finally, before you get out of here, I would like for you to tell me what was your favorite thing about English class this year. And y'all, this can be a lot of stuff. It could be the atmosphere. It could be the way the class is organized. It could be it could be a specific, topic that we talked about, or a lesson that we did. And, tell me the good things. What are the things that I need to make sure I repeat with my next year 9th grade class so that they are as successful as I feel like you're going to be? These last two slides are for you. These are my reflections over the year, and I will let you read those, or I can read them. I'll just read them to you real quick. During the 2019-2020 school year, I learned that you must remain flexible. The year was filled with opportunities for change and growth. You are the reason I'm a better teacher. You motivate me to learn more ways to teach a topic because you didn't get it. I've learned patience and understanding from you. I watch how you interact and help each other. Although we did not get to end class in a traditional sense, please know that you have forever left a mark upon my heart. I will always remember you and your sweet smile. Have a fantastic summer. Please, please, please come see me when we return to school. Email me over the summer if you need a friend. I'm always here for you. Love, your old pal, Miss Ritchie. Teaching is not about information. Did y'all know that? I mean, it is. But what really matters is having an honest intellectual relationship with your teachers. We all learn. Teachers don't come into a class knowing everything. You're a new patient every single time. It's a lot like being a doctor. And so no two people are the same. No situation is the same. And so as a teacher, I have to be willing to stick my neck out every year and learn new stuff. And I have to be brave because a high school audience is a tough crowd. But y'all were a fantastic crowd. I really enjoyed working with you. You really did challenge me a lot this year. And for me, that makes me a better teacher. So I love ya. I miss you. And that's this week's assignment. You can get it all done on your own schedule. It's just due by Friday. Next week, we'll be writing sentences. So email me if you need me. I'll have a Google Meet today at 11, and I'll have one next Friday. If you need to meet with me personally, send me an email. Talk to you later.